So welcome everyone to our Spring Reset workshop. Thanks for joining me. And I'm just going to share my PowerPoint about reset. And can everyone see that on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, where you've got a thing.
Okay.
You've got a thing over it that says this meeting is being recorded.
Okay.
Got to click on the accept or something.
Just click on got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that what it is? Thanks,
Yeah.
Cheryl. It's great when you've got the tech support on the call, isn't it?
Isn't it?
All right, so I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so that it's a bit easier to understand. So what I wanted to cover today was, and what I'm going to cover in this series is looking at how you can reset your diet and lifestyle for spring, because I think it's always a really good time to do it, mainly because there's lots of wonderful fresh fruit and vegetables. I got very excited the other day because the first local asparagus was in the shops.
Yes.
I don't like buying asparagus that comes from China or Mexico. I feel like it's just done too many food miles. So I want to look at specifically the sort of foods that really support your body to detoxify so that you can do all this with food as much as possible. I'm going to talk next week a little bit about some appropriate supplements. And when I'm looking at a spring reset, I've usually got 3 levels of supplements. So because I was originally trained as a homeopath, I tend to have a lot of clients who are quite sensitive. So there are 3 levels in which I do a detox. There's kind of the homeopathic level. They can deal with a little bit of liquid herbs level. And then there's the full-on protocol that I use, which I actually find really effective. Then I'm going to look a little bit more about detoxing your environment. So the sort of things that you need to be aware of in your environment and, maybe bringing in some additional sources. So that's what we're going to cover in the 3 sessions. Now, what I used to call, the wording I used for detox originally was, we used to call it a weed, seed and feed, which I thought was a really nice gardening analogy. Because basically, what you're trying to do is remove toxins from your diet and from your lifestyle. You're trying to add in healthier foods that support your good gut bacteria. And then you're going to try and improve the composition of your microbiome by feeding preferentially those really beneficial bacteria over the ones that may not serve you well. So if I gave you an example, basically what you want is you want a complex gut bacteria that will actually support you, reduce your allergic response, support your immune system, help you eat a broad range of foods. Now, one of the bugs that can overgrow in your system is Candida, and most people will have heard about Candida at some point in time. One of the things that I often find with Candida is signs of overgrowth are cravings for sugar, having your energy fluctuate, or you get that kind of hypoglycemia, low energy. And one of the quick and dirty checks I often ask people is poke your tongue out at me. And, it's like, okay, that seems like a weird thing for me to ask, but what I'm looking for is to see if there's a coating on the tongue, if it's white and pasty. So that just tells me that we've got a little bit too much of that, and we need to focus on some ways to either reduce that level of Candida or actually support the other beneficial bacteria. So one of the nice ways for reducing Candida is to use a prebiotic called Saccharomyces boulardii. And it's in a product called SB Pro. And you just do that for a month and it just helps bind and reduce that level of the Candida and actually help support the growth of more beneficial types of bacteria. Now, so when we're looking at this overview, I'm using the terminology now, removing toxins. So basically thinking about it as reducing the load on your liver. And probably the easiest way to think about it is one of the biggest burdens on most people's liver at most points in time is alcohol. So if you're drinking every single day for a couple of weeks, I don't know how you'd feel. Some people would be fine with it. Other people would feel terrible. So one of the things we do during a detox is we actually look at reducing that toxic load coming in, whether it's alcohol, whether it's sugar, whatever it is for you. and then removing the bad bacteria and waste from your system, and then working on actually replenishing the digestive lining. So one of the foods that really feed your gut lining is glutamine. And while I often use it as a supplement, in food, it's present in cabbage. And so cabbage is a really good source of glutamine. And through all my years of practice, I've only ever managed to get one person to do glutamine with foods, and she drank a litre of cabbage juice a day. Yeah. Can you imagine? I'm thinking it would have been interesting to be around her environment, but she said it really made a difference. So, you know, you can do this with food, but there are some things where you're going to choose to do it in a different way. And then the other part of detoxing is making sure that your body can actually process materials and break it down so that they can be eliminated. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of an insight into the 6 ways that our liver works to remove toxins from our environment. And but before I jump onto that, so those of you who have actually have seen the email with the detox worksheet, if you have a look at it, and we'll talk about this more next week, because I'm going to resend it to you. So on my blog, I've got the detox worksheet, and you go through and you answer the questions, and then you just score it. And it actually tells you whether you should be doing like an express, quick and dirty detox, or a more specific, whether there are things you need to more specifically target. And the kind of key areas are supporting the liver, looking at heavy metals, and looking at digestive function overall. So there's 2 different processes for that. And for the people who have a higher score, there's probably some other supplements we need to look at and consider. But that was just to give you an insight. And I think, you know, I always love doing those Facebook quizzes. I'm an absolute, you know, I always fall into the trap of doing those name tests and all those other things that supposedly tell you more about yourself. And yes, Cheryl, you're nodding, you're shaking your head.
Virus traps, malware traps, don't do them.
I know. But this one is all right because you download it and print it out and there's no malware attached.
Christine's one's okay. Don't do the ones on Facebook. You're asking for trouble.
Yeah, exactly. So looking at the liver, and the liver is an amazing organ. It's practically the only organ in the body which, if you cut half of it out, it can regrow itself. So it's really capable of repair and replenishment. And one of the herbs that's actually often used in herbal medicine, St. Mary's thistle, is actually renowned for its ability to repair the liver. So if we provide it with good support, it functions really well. Now, there are 6 different phases of liver detoxification, and the whole process with the body is we're taking in nutrients and food, and we're being exposed to toxins. And then the body will take the nutrients it needs, but it needs to remove the waste product. And it does this in a way by a couple of stages, which involves making it either water soluble so that it can be removed through the kidneys, or in another way so that it can be removed through the feces. So, you know, the whole process of detoxification is about getting it into a form where it can easily be, the waste can easily be removed. And when you're feeling, you know, when people's liver is overloaded, and you think about it as a hangover, really, it's that kind of symptom, is when your liver is overloaded, you feel really foggy and headachy and uncomfortable. It's because those toxins haven't been able to be removed and they recirculate in the bloodstream until you're in a position where you can actually remove that waste. And you often see, like, one of the things that can cause a lot of distress to particularly older women is having a urinary tract infection, because you're not removing a lot of the waste, and so you can feel really unwell as that recirculates through your system. So just looking at those 6 phases of liver detoxification, they've got some really impressive terminology, but a lot of it is really just about making it water soluble or metabolizing it. So methylation is the process of making it water soluble, and basically it adds a carbon atom and 3 hydrogens to it. And that actually is a methyl group, which, you know, more in the form of, say, an alcohol or something, which can be removed. The second form phase is glucuronidation. And that's really important because it actually metabolizes about 35% of the drugs that you might be taking. So, you know, if someone's on blood pressure medication or statins or anything else, this process is really important for drugs. And two of the foods it uses are for this process is basically good fats, oily fish, and things like green tea are really important for this phase. But if you're going to use oh, there you go. Well done. Yes. I was going to say, always important when doing a detox workshop to have a cup of green tea with you. And I'm going to say, if you're using it for this purpose, please make sure it's organic as much as possible. The next process is sulfation, which is really important for detoxing your steroid hormones, your bile acids, and your neurotransmitters. So women who are having a lot of hormonal symptoms really need to look at supporting this phase. The following one is acetylation, which is basically adding an acetic acid group to make it more liquid. Glutathione conjugation, which just sounds really impressive, but glutathione is a really important antioxidant in the body. So supporting this pathway, and a lot of people will actually take glutathiones as a supplement to support this. But I can find in some sensitive folk that it will actually push the detox way too hard and they'll actually not feel good with it. So often supporting the earlier phases within acetylcysteine might be preferential. And the last phase is glycination, which adds some amino acids. And that's actually also really important for just detoxing a lot of your pathogens and other things. So looking at those 6 phases, there are clearly foods that will support that process. So there are supplements as well, but I just wanted to go through some of the foods because I think it's really useful to understand what's supporting each stage. And then you kind of know, why am I eating all these leafy greens? So for methylation, what's really important for those methyl groups is having B vitamins and particularly folate. And that's really, leafy greens are one of your best sources. So whenever I'm looking at diet, I always really focus on the importance of having at least 1 cup of leafy greens a day, whether that's, your Chinese greens like your pak choy, your bok choy, choy sum, whether it's spinach or kale or something like that, you need that cup of leafy greens every day. Glucuronidation, I already mentioned the oily fish. And ideally, if you are taking oily fish, small oily fish, because they're going to have less of the heavy metal buildup. And limonene. And limonene is found in lemon peel, for example. I already mentioned the green tea. Now, for the sulfation process, what's really critical is protein. And remember, I said this is important in detoxing your hormones. So for a lot of women, when they get stressed, they tend to eat more carbohydrate type foods. They go for the quick fix and they tend to not be eating enough protein. And so this process is not well supported and they can't detoxify their hormones effectively, which then sends them into a sugar craving. So they eat more carbs and basically they're undermining this whole process. So this is where protein is really critical. And when I say protein, I mean, I mean animal proteins, fish, chicken, cheese, meat, that sort of thing, but also your vegetarian proteins. And one of the other really important things, molybdenum, is found a lot in legumes and nuts. So, those other vegetarian proteins, it's really important to have a wide range of foods to support all these processes. Now, I think the most colourful process is acetylation because it's forming acetic acid, which of course is what we know about coming from, oranges and lemons and other citric fruits. So with acetylation, it's all your colourful vegetables, but also your citrus fruits. So when I'm thinking about this, I'm looking at, the fruit and vegetables. You want a cup of leafy greens and you also want those brightly coloured vegetables as well. And for the glutamine, as I mentioned earlier, I may not be able to convince you all to drink a litre of cabbage juice a day. And I really want to hear from anyone who actually decides to take me up on that. But if you're not prepared to do that, at least including some of the cabbage family in your diet can be really helpful. Now, with cabbage, I know It's also about how you cook it. So you might want to look at something like the wombok, the light Chinese cabbage, which makes a really good salad. But also other ones in that family can be the other brassica vegetables like your cauliflower, your Brussels sprouts, your broccoli. You know, chances are there's one of those. Yeah, you had a question, Cheryl?
Yeah. Is it better to have it raw or cooked? So like making a coleslaw, is that better than having cooked cabbage or in a stir fry, or it doesn't matter?
Look, I think the thing is it depends on how strong and robust your digestive function is. If you have a weaker digestion, it's going to be better for you to have that food cooked because it helps break it down and makes it more digestible for you. If you've got a pretty robust digestion, you're probably okay with it, you know, in a raw form. But generally speaking, things like cabbage, you don't tend to lose a lot of nutrients unless you really overcook it.
Okay.
And one of the things I would recommend is even if you're using, you know, use the cooking water in your gravy or something else as well, so that you've got those nutrients that have been cooked out being picked up in your other flavorings. Now, the other process, glycination, which needs amino acids. So there are 8, 9 essential amino acids and another 10 or 11 that are you know, can be formed from those essential amino acids, but basically the major source of them is protein. So you can see from this that to support these processes, you really need to be having enough protein. You need to be having a range of vegetables. You need some of your citrus fruits, and then things like your good fats and a nice dose of cabbage. Now, so this would be the sort of, you know, if I was trying to model what would a detox diet look like, and I'm actually going to switch over to actually look at the detox meal plan that I've sent through. You've basically got what I would say is a serve of lean protein, and what is enough for you is really part of the critical discussion about this. So basically, that's actually probably too big a serve on that picture. That's from the cafe downstairs, and Alfie is just way too generous with his servings with food. But what you're looking for is a palm-sized, palm thickness, your palm, not mine, piece of protein with a meal. And for the vegetarians like Cheryl, 2 palms. Okay.
So 2 eggs?
Yeah. Well, 2 eggs is about 12 grams of protein. So that's actually a really good point. What you're looking for with protein is you need about 1 gram per kilo per day. So if I've got a woman who's, I'm going to go with 50 kilos because it makes the maths easy. That's 50 grams of protein.
Do you know anyone who's only 50 kilos?
I've got a very skinny sister. Yeah. But so 50 grams of protein a day, it doesn't sound like a lot. But when you look at, say, a chicken breast fillet, it's only going to be about 20 to 25% protein. So 100 gram chicken breast fillet is about 20, 25 grams of protein. 2 eggs that Cheryl mentioned earlier is about 12 grams of protein.
Oh,
so enough protein over the day might be 2 eggs, a small can of tuna, and a chicken breast fillet that night. Or a cup of, you know, basically a cup of chickpeas, the 2 eggs, plus maybe a protein powder as well if you're not having any protein at night.
And a palm full of peanuts or something.
Yeah. So the protein is a really important part of supporting this process. And most people, I find, feel better if they're eating enough protein for them. Now, the other part of it is actually making sure you don't feel hungry. So you really want to go to town on the veggies at this stage. And when I say 3 cups, 6 serves is 3 cups of vegetables a day. And at least 1 cup of that should be green leafy. But mix it up. You know, I find it's really good with greens is that I add them to lots of different things, whether I'm doing, I used to do this peanut chicken curry, which has become a peanut chicken and cauliflower curry with a lot of spinach and peas in it. So, you know, bulking it up and adding it to other flavors, because a little bit of sauce or flavoring can always make it really tasty. And there's quite a few different salad dressings out there that you can use to spice things up as well. Now, I also do like to include a handful of nuts and seeds every day, because a nut is basically, and seeds are basically everything a plant needs to grow, which means they're a really rich source of nutrition across a wide range. and a couple of pieces of fruit and some healthy fats. So whether the healthy fats are coming from fish or olive oil or avocado, fat is really important for a lot of our functioning. So it is important to be getting that every day. And critically, when you're detoxing, is also making sure you're having enough water. Now, when I say 2 to 3 litres of water a day, that would be for an average sized bloke. For most women, it's probably around, if you're eating that much vegetable, you're actually getting quite a bit of fluid in there. It's probably around 1.5 litres a day, plus a litre for every hour of exercise. And, you know.
I have another question.
Yep.
Does decaf tea qualify as water or not?
It's still got a little bit of caffeine
because
in.
I had this argument with my mother for years, so
Oh,
I
right.
would like an expert opinion.
I probably wouldn't count it as hydration. And
I
what I
win.
recommend normally for most people is if you're having a cup of tea or coffee, and this is actually green tea, have a glass of water with it each time. And that just helps you balance out your hydration. Now, if you would also have the goal of losing a little bit of weight, because the one thing I didn't mention on there was having a couple of serves of starchy carbs a day as well. Whether it's, so that could be, and I would say a serve is probably like 2 small potatoes, half a cup of rice, ideally brown rice if you can do it, because it actually makes it nice for your gut flora. But if you're actually wanting to lose a few kilos, add more vegetables. So rather than having the grains, have more low carb vegetables. So your snow peas, your broccoli, your beans, that sort of thing, and restrict the fruits just 1 piece a day. No, I just thought I'd throw that tip in for those who are interested. Now, what I am going to cover going forward is these topics, which is I'm going to look next week at different levels of support. I'm going to look at personal care exposures, and I'm going to look at cleaning up the household in terms of chemicals. But what I wanted to share with you now is just the meal plan, which has disappeared on me. Okay, hold on a second. Because I just wanted to give you an idea about what was involved. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let's see if I can. Yeah, there we go. So can you all see the meal plan?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Ooh,
All right.
Sweet potato porridge sounds nice.
I know. I found that one and I thought that was actually pretty awesome, really. You know, because I'm always looking for some options for eggs, because I can't eat eggs. So I'm always looking for different breakfast options. And I thought what I would do is provide you, this is it's designed more for inspiration than, you know, necessarily following it strictly. But what I have done, this is from my meal planning software, and it does actually give me the information on, you know, you can break down the calories, you can look at specific nutrients, you can even look at, you know, calcium, et cetera, et cetera. But what I tried to do was give you some inspiration for some different options for some breakfast. So I've got a smoothie in here, and I would recommend with a smoothie that you actually add some protein powder to it as well. This is an orange immunity booster smoothie. So if you're struggling with the orange vegetable, the brightly colored vegetables, I thought this was a really good one to include. And interestingly, this actually has pumpkin in it. So let me know what you think. You've got the paleo sweet potato porridge, which basically, if you prep the sweet potato the night before, it's quick and easy to do. And for the vegetarians here, I have a black bean egg white omelette. So I thought that was just, and look, that would really, I think, make a pretty easy lunch too.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing with the meal plan is I've got quite a range of options here in terms of different dinners. And what I recommend for most people is the best way to eat healthy on a regular basis is just cook once, eat twice. So most of the time, what I've suggested for the evening meal is then the leftovers for lunch the next day. So just makes it easy, and you're getting that protein and vegetables. I would say you probably do need to add a little bit more veg to this, but overall we've got some nice options in terms of, I put some vegetarian options in here with a roasted sweet potato and beet. And there was also, hold on. Oh, a couple of other things that I thought might be interesting. The chickpea fritters, because I was just conscious of chickpeas being a good source of molybdenum and protein. So that was from that other part of our detox. And a very easy strawberry ice cream, which is not really like dairy based, but is actually based on, I think, rice milk, but just for a sweeter option. So I've just tried to give you a range of different options just to inspire you to try a few different things. And Cheryl, your job is to try the roasted Brussels sprouts Caesar salad.
I love Brussels sprouts, so that will not be a problem.
And I know Barbara likes them as well, but I'm not really a fan. So
The only vegetable I don't like is squash. Every other vegetable is okay in my house.
All right, so have a look through that. And, you know, I just set everyone the challenge of trying one of the recipes over the next week and to give me some feedback next week. All right, so I will be sending out a link to that, and it's on my blog, which is Christine Pope Nutritionist, under Spring Reset. So you can just download it from that, and it comes with, so each of them is a separate page with the recipe in and giving you the ingredients and a shopping list. I mean, if you wanted to get really inspired and do everything, then the shopping list is there to make it just a little bit easier. So look, I thought based on that, let's just see, I'm just going to finish up the recording here now, just so that we can go to a little bit of Q&A and see if people have got any questions about that. So thanks for joining us.